I wasn't even supposed to cry that day. I turned 64 with a quiet heart and carrot cake in my hands. But by sunset, my grandson's hand was on my face, and no one flinched. If you're a mother who ever sat silently at her own birthday, praying just to be noticed, this story is yours. Please, before we begin, subscribe to Whispers of a Mother. Leave a comment below. What's one lesson life taught you too late? There are moments that don't echo, they just stop you. Still. Frozen. My moment was on a soft afternoon, warm enough for short sleeves, loud enough with kids and cheap birthday banners. I stood on my daughter's patio with a plastic fork in one hand and a paper plate holding carrot cake I couldn't even eat because I'm allergic to walnuts, they knew that, and a $10 scratch ticket tucked in my apron pocket. Just something I'd bought that morning, something small, something mine. Jacob was there, my oldest grandson, tall and tired of listening to anyone. He slouched on a patio chair like he owned the world, sucking from that vape like it kept his heart beating. I said, "Hi." He didn't look up. Rachel, my daughter, my only girl, was fussing with the tablecloths, pretending the beer in her husband's hand wasn't his third before noon. My deviled eggs sat untouched. I smiled and told myself to be grateful to just enjoy what I could. I told myself to pick off the frosting and pretend. It lasted all of 10 minutes. Jacob got loud, snapped at his little brother over some game. I stepped forward, gently tired more than anything. "Let's keep the peace today. It's my birthday. That's all I said. That's it." He stood, turned, and slapped me across the face. Open hand, sharp, real. The plate wobbled in my grip. The fork fell. My skin burned where he hit me, not just from the slap, but from the sound of no one saying a damn thing. Rachel didn't shout. Mark reached for another drink. The other kids looked away. No one moved. I stood there, cake tilting off the plate, my cheek on fire, my soul suddenly naked. I waited for a voice, any voice. Even a whisper of, "Are you okay?" But all I heard was wind, so I placed the plate down gently, pulled the ticket from my pocket, slipped it into my purse. I said I'm going to lie down and walked into the house. Not one footstep followed me. Inside the guest room, I sat on the edge of the bed, the floral comforter scratchy against my hands, and tried to feel like a person. I waited for a knock. It never came. An hour later, I picked up my purse, walked out the front door, and never looked back. The motel room smelled like bleach and lost dreams. I paid cash and asked for a room at the back, where the vending machines buzzed louder than the television sets. I didn't cry when I left. Not then. But as I sat there on the stiff edge of the motel bed, shoes still on purse clutched like it might run away, my cheek still warm from Jacob's hand, the crying came. Not loud, not messy. Just one tear at a time, like my soul was leaking. That's when I remembered the ticket. I'd bought it on a whim at the gas station after filling up. $10, a birthday gift to myself. I hadn't scratched it, didn't expect anything. But something in me reached for it now like a lifeline. With a shaking hand, I dug a quarter from my keychain. The numbers came off, slow silver flakes, falling like dust onto the thin motel carpet. One match, then two, then three. I blinked. I blinked again. $5,000. $5 million. I didn't scream. I didn't laugh. I sat there with the ticket in my lap like it was a stranger that had just confessed a secret I wasn't ready to hear. And then I cried again, not for the money, for what it proved. That maybe, just maybe, I hadn't gone completely mad. That maybe there was still something in this world that would look at me and say, "You matter." I didn't sleep that night. The air conditioner clanged like it was dying. The sheets felt like paper. But the silence inside me, the silence I'd lived with for years, started to shift. Not dissolve, not yet, but crack like old ice warming under a hidden sun. The next morning, I didn't go back. I didn't call. I drove until the city became unfamiliar. 2 towns over, I stopped for coffee and sat in a booth where nobody knew my name. There on the back of a takeout menu, I wrote the only message I felt capable of giving. Don't call. I'm not lost. I'm done. I'll be safe. Don't come looking. I don't want to be found. I didn't sign it, just folded it up, mailed it from the gas station, and walked away. I called the lottery office next, told them I didn't want a photo, no check presentation, just peace. An anonymous trust, please. The woman on the other end said, "We get that more than you'd think." I said I doubt that. 4 days later, the money was in. But it didn't feel like riches. It felt like armor, like a yes in a world that had spent too long telling me no. I bought a burner phone, a cheap laptop, checked into another motel under a name I hadn't used in years. Louise Carey, my mother's maiden name. I wasn't running away. I was stepping into a life where I could finally be more than invisible. And still, not one call came. Not Rachel. Not even the grandbabies. They hadn't even noticed I was gone. But I noticed. I noticed how quiet the air was without guilt. How coffee tasted different when no one interrupted. How I could breathe in a room without wondering who might need something next. And then, just as the loneliness started whispering again, I saw her. Lily, on Instagram, covered in flour, holding a tray of blueberry scones like it was gold. Jacob's ex-wife, the only person who ever looked me in the eye and said, "Thank you," like she meant it. She looked exactly like I remembered her and nothing like I remembered her. In the photo, she wore a thrifted apron dusted in flour, a toddler perched on her hip, a soft smile bending under exhaustion but never breaking. The caption under the scone tray said, "Still dreaming. Flowers cheaper than hope." It took me 10 full minutes to stop staring at that sentence. Lily, my grandson's ex-wife. The one who was always too kind, too quiet, too soft-spoken for the noise that family had become. She used to call me Miss Ellie even after the divorce, even when no one else bothered to tell me she and Jacob were done. I remembered the time she left chamomile tea on my porch when I had a migraine. How she once helped me fix the blinds in my kitchen when Jacob said, "That's not my job." And when they cast her out, they didn't just forget her, they scrubbed her from memory. But I hadn't. I pulled out the burner phone, opened her bakery account. My fingers hovered nervous. "You still want to bake?" That's what I wrote. No introduction, no explanation. Just that. And I waited. 2 days passed. Nothing. Then one message. "Who is this?" My heart kicked. I typed erased, typed again. "Ellie, Jacob's grandmother, I'm safe. I have something I want to talk to you about if you're still in Savannah." She took another day, and then "You're serious, I am." We agreed to meet at a cafe, Thursday, 3 o'clock. I got there 20 minutes early. Hands trembling so badly I spilled tea on the tablecloth. When she walked in, hair pulled back, baby girl asleep in her arms, I almost didn't recognize her. Not because she'd changed, but because she carried herself like no one ever asked how she was doing anymore. She paused before sitting. Her eyes scanned mine like she was bracing for another blow. I said, "It's really me." And her whole body softened like she'd finally exhaled after holding her breath for 5 years. We sat. No small talk, no masks. I told her everything. The slap, the silence, the scratch ticket, the motel, the millions. She listened without interrupting, her eyes narrowing not in judgment, but in some fierce calculation of what it all meant. Then quietly, she asked, "Why me?" And I told her. Because she was the only one who ever treated me like a person, not a burden. Because when I was invisible to everyone else, she still saw me. Because I remembered her dream, the bakery, the sketches, the little menu names she used to draw in the margins of napkins. "I want to help you build it," I said. "You've got the talent, I've got the funds. Her lip trembled. She looked away, blinking fast. What's the catch? There isn't one, I said. I just want to do something good with someone good. She didn't cry, but I did. Behind my teacup. We agreed to meet again in 2 days to go over plans, logistics, names. When I left the cafe that afternoon, I didn't walk. I floated. That night in the motel, I stayed up sketching business plans, reading permit laws, and researching kitchen layouts. I hadn't felt this awake in years. And when I stood in front of the mirror, gray roots showing face soft with time, I whispered, "You're not done." And for the first time since the birthday that broke me, I believed it. We named it Second Rise that afternoon, Lily's idea. She said it was about the dough, how it needs time and warmth to bloom after being punched down. But we both knew it wasn't just about bread. It was about us. The women they wrote off. The ones they forgot. The next few weeks were a blur of flour sweat and forms. I found a storefront 2 blocks from a school tucked between a nail salon and an old comic shop. It used to be a dry cleaner. The tile was cracked, but the light through the windows was perfect. We paid cash. No loans. No banks. Just 2 women and a toddler and a dream no one believed in but us. We scoured second-hand listings for kitchen gear, hauled ovens with a borrowed truck, negotiated permits with city clerks who kept glancing at me like they were trying to place my face. Lily did recipe testing in her tiny kitchen at home, cinnamon braids, honey rolls, church cakes. She stayed up until 2 a.m., flour in her hair, baby asleep on a blanket by the stove. I learned about health codes, insurance, payroll software. I spent hours online comparing aprons and debating signage fonts. We argued over lemon zest and parchment paper. I patched a leak in the bathroom with a pawnshop wrench and a YouTube tutorial. And yet, it never felt like work. It felt like rebirth. Every time I held a measuring cup or tasted dough or rewrote our menu on the chalkboard, I felt something stitch itself back together inside me. I wasn't just funding a bakery. I was reclaiming space. The space to be loud without yelling, to be seen without asking. One night, Lily fell asleep at the counter, face in her arms, surrounded by sticky notes and sketches. And I looked at her and thought she was never the problem. They were. She had been told she was too much, then not enough, and still she showed up. Still she baked. We opened quietly on a Saturday. No announcement, just unlocked the doors and waited. People came. Not crowds, but enough. A nurse from the clinic down the street. A man from the community center. A grandmother with 2 grandkids who pointed at our chalkboard and said, "That smells like my mama's kitchen." They smiled. They stayed. And every time they did, something in me softened. Not pain, not pride. Something older. Something like redemption. We kept it simple, 3 items on the menu, cash, only, no frills. But every cookie sold felt like a seed. Every compliment was a hand reaching across time, stitching back the parts of me I thought I'd buried. And still, no one knew. No photos of me online. No names attached. Just Lily and her smile, and that was enough. I watched her bloom. Confident, certain. The laugh that had once been soft and cautious now rang through the kitchen like wind chimes. And I thought to myself, maybe this is what motherhood was supposed to feel like. Not obedience, not sacrifice, but watching someone grow without needing you to disappear to do it. One night, we sat on milk crates behind the shop, passing a cheap bottle of wine. She asked, "Do you think they miss you?" I didn't even ask who she meant. I just looked up at the sky and said, "Maybe, but they don't get to see this version of me. Only you do." We clinked our cups. No toast, no explanation, just a soft silence that meant everything. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had chosen myself. It started with a photo. Blurry, harmless, or so I thought. I was in the background, holding a tray of muffins near the back door, head down apron, smudged with flour. Lily had shared her story with a small food blog, never expecting them to post pictures. But Jacob recognized me. Of course he did. The boy who hit me once and never looked back suddenly had all the time in the world. He messaged the bakery account. "I know she's with you. This is sick. What is she doing with you?" Lily's hands trembled as she showed me the messages. Her jaw clenched. "I'm blocking him." But I told her not yet. I wanted to see what he'd do. Maybe foolishly, I still hoped for a sorry. By Friday, Rachel had called the shop 5 times. Left voicemails that started with "Mom, is this you?" and ended with "You can't just disappear." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not when the silence was still fresh, still echoing from that birthday afternoon. Instead, I baked. That night, I opened my laptop, the burner one, and searched my name. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe nothing. But there it was. A Facebook post. A girl I barely knew, someone Jacob had dated once, sharing the bakery photo with a caption, "Pretty sure that's Jacob's grandma at that new place in Savannah. Isn't that the one he slapped?" I stared at it. Couldn't look away. Then came the podcast. Family Truths Unfiltered. I didn't know the host. Just another voice behind a microphone. But I knew the guest, Jacob. He spun his story well. Voice cracking at just the right places. I loved her. I used to call every week. I picked her up from the pharmacy. Lies. All of it. I was the one who waited outside the DMV. I gave him gas money, fed him when he had nothing. But to his listeners, I was the ghost, ungrateful, bitter, rich now, and dangerous. Lily played the clip for me. Her hand shook the whole time. "They think I'm funding my ex-wife's revenge bakery," I said, almost laughing. But it wasn't funny. Our inbox filled with hate. "Shame on you, traitor. Hope karma finds you." I wanted to scream the truth, to shout every name, every date, every bruise of memory. But Lily put her hand on mine and said, "Let them scream. We keep serving." So we did. Every morning I baked with my hands clenched tighter. Every smile had to push through fog. But I kept going, because this was still mine. And then Rachel left a message I couldn't ignore. "I heard the podcast. I don't know what to believe anymore. Call me, please." I held the phone in my hand for a long time. I wanted to call, to tell her Jacob was lying, that this wasn't revenge, it was recovery. But then I saw her face again that afternoon when he hit me. How she didn't flinch, didn't speak. And I put the phone down. That night, I folded napkins with Mia. Watched her giggle as she messed them up again and again. And I told myself, let them shout. I'll build something they can't drown. She came on a Tuesday. No warning, no call ahead. Just showed up in jeans and a faded hoodie, like maybe she hoped I wouldn't recognize her. But I knew. I'd know my daughter anywhere, even under the years of silence and the weight of pretending. Lily saw her through the window first. Said nothing. Just took Mia by the hand and disappeared into the back, leaving me standing there with a dish towel in my hand and my heart rattling against my ribs. I walked out, opened the door, and there she was. Rachel. She looked up slowly, like the ground had been heavy beneath her feet, like every step toward me had cost her something. "Hi, Mom," she said, and her voice cracked right down the middle. I didn't hug her, didn't cry. I just nodded toward the cafe and said, "You want tea?" She followed me in. We sat in the corner, that little table where the sunlight hits best mid-morning. I poured 2 mugs of chamomile and tried to pretend my hands weren't shaking. She didn't touch the cup, just stared at it, like it held all the words she'd never said. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't know what to do that day." My breath caught. "When Jacob hit you?" I froze. "And then you left. And then the ticket, the podcast." "Lily." She swallowed hard. It all got loud so fast, and She stopped, looked away. I didn't stop him, she said. I should have. The silence after that wasn't heavy. It was full of everything we couldn't say before. I told her the truth, that I didn't leave because of the slap, I left because of the silence. That moment stretched longer than the sting on my cheek, I said. A slap bruises, silence hollows. She wiped her eyes. Quiet, raw. Then said, Jacob's not okay. He's unraveling. Spending money he doesn't have. Drinking. He says you picked Lily over him. I looked her in the eyes steady. I didn't pick her over him, I said. I picked dignity over denial. He just happened to be standing on the wrong side of both. Rachel let out a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a cry. And then she said something I never thought I'd hear. I wish I had your strength. That's when I saw her again, not the mother who stayed silent, not the woman who turned away, but the girl who used to sneak into my room at midnight and ask me how to calm colicky babies. The girl who braided my hair on Saturdays. I didn't forgive her, not completely. But in that moment, I saw the thread. The one that never broke even when it frayed. When she stood to leave, she didn't ask to stay. Didn't beg for answers. She just said, if you ever want to come home, the door's open, no pressure. I said thank you, and meant it, even if I didn't know if I'd ever walk through that door again. Lily came back with Mia asleep on her shoulder. She looked at me, no questions, just a gaze like open space. You okay? She asked. I think so, I said. Then I picked up a tray of shortbread cookies and went back to work. Because when the ground shakes sometimes, the only thing to do is bake it still again. I wrote the letter after closing, sitting in the bakery's tiny office with a cup of tea gone cold and the hum of the fridge like soft background music to the quietest chapter of my life. I'd thought about it for weeks, maybe longer. The words had been pacing in my chest, waiting, not for revenge, not even for closure. Just to be said. The paper was plain, folded once neat. I started with his name, Jacob. Then I paused, not because I doubted the words, but because I was finally choosing them for myself, not for how they'd land, not for how they'd sound when passed around in a podcast clip or whispered at family dinners, but how they felt coming out of me. I wrote, I didn't leave because you slapped me. I left because you believed you could. And because everyone else believed staying silent was easier than telling you no. The rest followed easier. I told him I wasn't hiding, that I wasn't trying to replace him, that I hadn't picked Lily to spite him. I picked her because she was the only one who looked me in the eye and said, thank you, like she meant it. And then she showed up. You weren't replaced, I wrote. You removed yourself. There's a difference. I didn't tell him I forgave him. I didn't say I hated him either. I just said I hoped one day he'd understand what it means to build something instead of breaking it. That I hoped he'd learn to apologize without turning it into a stage. And then I ended it the only way I knew would matter, Lala. The name he hadn't called me since he was 10, before the world taught him where to put his anger. I sealed the envelope. No return address. Just his name on the front. I left it at the bakery counter with a sticky note, if he ever comes back, this is for the boy in the hoodie. Then I stepped out. Not far, just down the block to the park. Lily was sitting on the bench, Mia in her lap, feeding pigeons crackers from a paper cup. The sunlight hit the sidewalk in that late afternoon angle that makes every crack glow gold, like the street itself is stitched with something holy. I sat beside her, said nothing. Mia giggled, her hands full of crumbs and sky, and Lily tilted her head toward me. You okay? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I just watched the wind tease the corner of our bakery sign in the distance. Second rise. Not just dough, not just dreams, a declaration, a refusal to stay buried, a resurrection. I'm not bitter, I finally said. I thought I would be, but I'm not. Lily smiled. You don't have to be. You're full. And she was right. I was full not of regret or rage or even pride, but something sturdier. Something like peace, or presence, or worth. We sat in silence as Mia chased a squirrel across the grass, laughing like the world had only just begun. And I realized this wasn't a comeback story. This was a homecoming, not to a place, to myself. I had built something, brick by brick, loaf by loaf, and no headline, no podcast, no child's shame could take it away. I was still Lala, still Ellie, still Mom. But more than all of that, I was finally mine.